Okay, hello again, everybody. Welcome back if you've joined me here before, and welcome to the live stream if you're new. So, as always, we're just going to look at a task 2 question. You're going to give me your ideas. I'll give you feedback on if your ideas are relevant or not, if your development is appropriate, and I'll also comment on your vocab and your grammar if it is something that needs to be addressed. So these lessons are particularly to give you feedback on your work, not to teach you how to do the IELTS test. Hi, Jervin. Good to see you here. So I just want to share, I have some lessons for you here. Click on either of those links and there are 3 hours worth of lessons to show you exactly what you need to do in task 2. Then you come to these lessons and I'll show you if you are not implementing any of that correctly. Hi, Dominic. Good to see you here too. In general, what I do in these lessons is I just let you make your own mistakes. But what I've noticed over the last few weeks is that there's a kind of consistent error in misunderstanding the question, where a lot of people are focused on the topic, not focused on the specifics of the question. So I want to guide you a little bit with today's question. Hi, Jewel. Good to see you here. So my first question for you with this is, we're comparing something, and it doesn't explicitly say compare A and B, but essentially we do need to compare two groups of people. So what I want you to do is look at this question and tell me, what two groups of people are we comparing with this? This is a good experiment, because I think if you get this wrong, it'll be difficult to get good relevant main ideas. But if you can see what I'm referring to here, what two groups of people are we comparing in this question? Let me just make that question a bit bigger for you there. Okay, and there's the question that I've asked you, just to clarify that. What two groups of people are we comparing in this question? So please go ahead and give me your answer in the comments, and I'll be able to guide you a bit more. After this, we will move on to your specific ideas. Okay, I'll just give you another few seconds there. If nobody has any ideas, I'll guide you a bit more, or perhaps even just give you the answer to that question. Jewel, thanks for your comment. I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. Dominic, yes, this is exactly what we're looking at. So we're comparing people who get married when they're older with people who get married when they're younger. That's exactly right. And that's essentially what I feel a lot of students in these lessons have been missing, that to analyze it in that way, to see what are you referring to? We're talking about people getting married older. So how does that affect the family compared to what? Compared to those who don't get married when they're older. Narges, good to see you here. So it's not about people who don't get married. It's those who are older when they get married compared to those who are younger when they get married. So that's exactly what we're talking about. Okay, so based on that, now that we have that aside, what I'm interested is, what are your main ideas? So what main ideas can you use? Now, again, you're going to have to say, I agree, or because this one says to what extent do you agree, it's not enough to say I agree. You have to say I completely agree or I completely disagree. But on either end of that, you need to tell me what main ideas are you using to support your opinion. So in your comment, let me know if you agree or disagree, and then 2 ideas you will use to support that opinion. Okay, so Dominic has shared an idea with me, but if you have not finished generating your ideas, please continue and share it in the comments when you are ready, and I'll give you feedback on your ideas. But I'm going to start on giving feedback to Dominic and whoever else's comments as they come through. But you continue with the task if you're not finished. If you're not finished yet, Dominic, more stable job for those who marry late. So you are disagreeing with the question, and you're saying more stable job, and then how that will be good for the family we will discuss later. Yes, that is relevant and specific. Thank you, Dominic. Beat Nguyen, hello to you too. Welcome to the lesson. So Dominic, you have just given me one main idea. You need 2, so you can continue with this task as well. So everyone, we're looking for the same thing. 2 ideas why you would agree or disagree. Hey, Sandy. Good to see you here, as always. Vicious, good to see you here too. Partially agree. No, I'm not. With the way to develop a main idea, the way to develop your answer is much more complicated if you partially agree. Because part of your task achievement score, the requirement is to have a clear and consistent opinion throughout your essay. So when you're saying I partially agree, so you're saying I agree a bit and I disagree a bit, and then you have to explain why you agree and explain why you disagree. And it's a fine line to hold that perfectly, compared to if you say I completely agree and 2 reasons for that, or I completely disagree and 2 reasons for that. So it's not that you cannot partially agree, it's that an essay where you completely agree or completely disagree is much easier to put together. So in relation to your ideas, marrying at a later age would ensure that one would be more mature. So they're more mature. Good. Whereas reproducing prowess, especially in women, may plummet if marrying later. So we would say less fertile, perhaps. Both of your ideas are relevant and both of them are specific, but I would get you to rephrase that and go with fully agree or fully disagree, because you're going to have a much better chance of a higher score by doing it that way. Hi, Noni. Good to see you here. Noni has her test tomorrow, so everyone wish luck to Noni. You're not that late. We're just getting started. So, Noni, disagree. Getting married at earlier age allow the parents to be close in age with their children. That's a bit vague, Noni. So, what are the implications of that? So, are you saying? So, firstly, you're disagreeing that it has a negative impact because they're closer at age. But what's the benefit of being closer in age? So that it's relevant, but it's not specific. So there must be some reason why you think it's better to be for them, the parents and the children, to be closer in age. So not specific enough at the moment, but just consider why do you think that? When parents are young, they have strength to raise their children well. Okay, so you have explained it. Okay, so this is one main idea, and you're saying that would have to be you agree, not you disagree, because the question says some people worry that it will have a negative impact on the family. So if you are saying it's better to get married younger, then you disagree with these people. So, oh my God, I'm getting all mixed up. So people worry that it will have a negative. I'm getting all twisted around here. Apologies. After making my notes wrong is what happened. No, you agree. I was right the first time. You agree it's better to get married when they're younger because they have more energy, more strength. So your main idea is actually relevant and specific once I read the explanation, but it should be you agree, not you disagree. So Maya, good to see you here. Can we write a certain extent I agree? I advise against it, as I'm sure you just heard me say to Vicious here. Technically you can, but it's not a good idea. Two main ideas. Thank you, Noni. Ashan, good to see you here as always. Caring to their parents become minimum. I'm not sure what that means. Economical burden on family. I'm not sure what that means. So it's perhaps you're saying that they would live at home with their parents for longer if they get married when they're older. So by living at home with their parents for longer, they're putting more of a burden on their parents. So the people getting married put a burden on their parents, not the children put a burden on the people getting married. I'm still a bit confused, to be honest. I can guess, but I'm not 100% sure if my guess is accurate. Sandy, sorry, Ashan. So just to go back to this, it's not clear, and mainly because of the vocabulary. Sandy, I agree. Less likely to get pregnant. We had that idea already because of biological age. The relationship between children and parents is likely to get less tight because of the wider age gap. Age gap affecting the bond. Good. Hi, Gada. Good to see you here. Narges, agree. Giving birth at a younger age is safer. So, safer having children. And decreasing the age gap between parents and the age gap again. Good. So those are all relevant. I totally agree with, you need the preposition with here, so you likely need to work on your preposition, Samuel, on the premise that it will help prevent later pregnancy complications. Okay, so this is a kind of a running theme. A lot of people have this idea as well. Samuel, keep in mind, so this is relevant and specific. So that main idea is appropriate, but keep in mind you need two main ideas. So to support your opinion, you need two. You have one, and it is relevant, but with only one main idea, you're not going to get higher than a band 5 for task achievement. You have to have the two to support your opinion. Vicious, you've taken my advice on board, so that's good. I completely agree with this statement, because if you'll have to say because if as doesn't, as means because in some context, but not when used in this structure. Because if a person marries at a later age, so you're making mistakes with articles as well, keep that in mind, you can work on those. Their fertility rate may decrease, and also a person will have a huge load of responsibilities which may be too daunting to fulfill. That is too vague. It's relevant, but it's too vague. So you're saying they'll have a lot of responsibilities. But what responsibilities? What responsibilities are you thinking of? And perhaps just have one, rather than you don't want to have a long list of responsibilities. So if you could just focus on one and say why, if they get married when they're older, what extra responsibilities will they have and how will that affect family life? You don't need to explain how it affects family life yet, but it should be in that context. Hi, Joel. Good to see you here. Saeed, I agree. If we marry early, then we have more time to enjoy married life. Good. We will have time to see kids growing in front of you. So is that two ideas or one? That seems like one idea. It's appropriate. It's relevant and specific, so it's appropriate, but that looks like one idea. So you'll need an extra one, Saeed. Narges, I don't have that. Don't believe the software allows me to do that. That would be nice. But I'm just quickly looking at my options. I do not have that option, I'm afraid. Dominic, as the percentage of which individuals acquire family grows up, that the vocabulary here isn't clear, Dominic. Some figures fear. So figures are numbers, not people. We talk about public figures. Do we talk about people as public figures in that context, but not people? It's not a direct synonym for people. So people fear that it will have disadvantages on their family. I completely disagree with those who marry early. So you're not disagreeing with the people who marry early. You're disagreeing with the people who think it will have a negative impact on family life. Because those who acquire family late may help them with, so they have a stable job. Yep. So we had that one. And their knowledge about family life later. I don't fully understand the second idea, Dominic. Their knowledge about family life later. I think the word later is what's confusing me here. But surely the knowledge you have of family life is from having a family. So if I get married later, I'll have less. Well, no, I don't see how that works, because, I mean, it's how many years old your child is, or how old your child is how. I don't see, if I get married younger or older, if it's related to how old I don't see the point, Dominic, to be very honest. Shashank, I differ this statement because marrying late is beneficial. Okay, so differ is not the same as disagree. So be careful. That's a vocab mistake. And that would hurt your score, because the reader has to guess, the examiner has to guess what you mean. Now, obviously, because of the question, I can guess quite easily. But if I didn't have the question and I was reading this, it would be quite difficult for me to guess that you're saying disagree. So in relation to your ideas, prior to getting married, so that's getting, not get. So be careful with infinitives, 2 plus infinitive. You need to do some research on that grammar. Prior to getting married, a person gets settled financially. Good. So that's relevant and specific, so that his or her money and expenses which incur after would be saved and utilized later. Okay, so far you don't need to explain your main idea. You just need to give me two main ideas that would support your answer. So what we're looking at is, what main idea would you put in the introduction? And right now, you need two ideas, and you don't need to develop them yet. What we would put in the introduction, you wouldn't need to develop. Saeed, you're very welcome. Gain more skills to help them during Okay, so they'll acquire more skills. Actually, do you know what? That's too vague. Because what skills are you referring to? So that's a classic case of a vague idea where you're saying they'll gain more skills, and it's relevant. I mean, it's definitely relevant, but it's not specific because I don't know what skills you're talking to. And again, for a main idea, you should just focus on one skill, not several skills. So you need to dig a bit deeper with that. Said, I agree on the above statement because if we marry at an early age, we can spend more time together. Good. So more time with the spouse. Good. And also, if we have kids at early age, there's more chance of having a healthy kid. Okay. So I think that's kind of to do with biology that we were talking about, that other students were talking about as well. Yep. So that's good. Two main ideas. They're both relevant. Hi, Lida. Good to see you here. I completely agree because getting married at an older age means they both have time to get to know each other better. So you mean they will know each other better before getting married? You need to make that clear. And also they have better problem solving skills than younger couples. Good. So Dominic, that's possibly the skill you were referring to, but just having one specific skill rather than talking about just skills in a general way. Hi, Dr. Abdul Rahman. Good to see you here too. Due to increase in rate at which people wed is informal. So I'm just going to look at your ideas. I completely disagree with this opinion because it reduces abortions. Reduction in abortion rates. That makes sense, yep. And sexually transmissible diseases among people. Okay, yep, they're both relevant and specific. Dominic, yes, sir, I do not have exactly words to explain it. Yep, that's fine. So I think really what Lida said is probably helping you with that one. Okay, so we had plenty of main ideas. Less fertile, the parents will have more strength. They won't be as tired as if when they're older. The age gap will mean that the children and the parents can bond better. It's safer to have for a woman to have children when she's younger. More time with spouse and healthier. So lots of ideas. And then we had stable for disagreeing, stable job, more mature, acquire more skills. So I think that's the one that lead ahead. So more problem solving skills and reduction in abortion rates. Okay. So from there, we're going to move on to the next paragraph. I'd like us all to focus on the same ideas. As always, I have a sample answer for you, and I'll share that at the end of the lesson. But this is the introduction that I wrote for this question. Because in general, people nowadays are older when they get married, there are some people who are concerned that this circumstance will have a negative effect on families. I completely agree with this because older people aren't as good at taking care of children and they are more selfish than their younger counterparts. Now, I personally don't believe this whatsoever, but those are two relevant and specific main ideas, so I chose those for my answer. So what I want you to do is write the body paragraph. Old people aren't as good at taking care of children. So based on that idea, I want you to write a body paragraph for me. So go ahead. I want to see your full body paragraphs because I haven't looked at a full body paragraph in these lessons for a while. And I think it's good practice, even though there's more downtime. And I think for anybody watching the recording of this lesson, it's there's a lull in the middle of the lesson, but I do want to see your ability to develop an idea, as in you need to follow first sentence, topic sentence. Don't say anything except repeating that main idea. Explain it, potentially give an example. So that's what I want from you. Write a full body paragraph for that main idea. Older people aren't as good at taking care of children. And then as soon as you're ready, you can post that in the comments for me. Okay, so I have a response from Shashank here. If you are not finished, just continue, and when you are ready, just post your answer in the comments. Okay, Shashank. Some are working parents, therefore they are not able to give their time to their children, which results in misbehavior. That makes sense. In our topic sentence, you have to repeat the main idea and then explain it. So you would say they're not as good at taking care of their children because they're too busy at work. Yeah, that would make sense. You need to develop that further. So for a full body paragraph, you're looking at somewhere, not exactly, but somewhere around 100 words. So it would need to be longer than what you've written here. Jaron, they don't have time to take care of their children because of their work, and they're not able to have time because of the work. Okay. They also think about their well-being, hence they old. I'm not sure what that means, hence they old, and they are not strong as when they are young. Good. Grey population, I've never heard this term before. I'm sure you've seen it somewhere, but it's not a term that's commonly used in English. Grey population does not look after children pretty well, as they themselves, as they age, can become physically exhausted. Good. At this age, older people suffer from many diseases, making them tired easily. So if people get married so you need an article at a later stage in life. So a preposition mistake, but that's just a phrase, a later stage in life. So you should learn it as a full phrase like that. They may not give 100% to their children, resulting in failing as playing a proper role as parents. For instance, in my locality, a couple had an offspring in their babies. This is getting a little bit unclear here because of the language vicious. Due to lack of attention from his parents, the child was addicted to. Okay, so that all makes sense. There's some vocabulary that you're kind of getting a bit mixed up here. So like an offspring in their babies, that doesn't translate. I see your message here. You read it, one of the readings of IELTS, the graying population. But what you'll find as well is, like, a writer can coin a phrase, so they can invent a phrase. So just be careful where you find it. And in general, I tend to push students towards avoid learning a phrase that you've seen for the very first time. So if you see a phrase like grey population, but it's the first time you've seen it, that's not really a good reason to learn that word. It could be something that the writer has invented. It could be something that's very rarely used. It might be outdated, because there are, like, if you read an old book, you'll find plenty of words that are never used anymore. So I think for that reason, when you're learning vocabulary, look out for words that you've seen a good few times already, that you're already familiar with, but you don't know how to use properly, or you don't know the meaning of. Those are words that you can confidently say, I will likely see this again, and it's appropriate to use it. So yeah, try not to just, yeah, it's possibly, and I can see as well, like, the word grey, the word populations, like, I already know those two words. That's great. I'll just use that phrase. It's easy to remember. But in general, I would encourage you to just look for vocab you're already familiar with when you're learning vocab. Offspring in their 50s, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, good. Good. Okay, we have some more paragraphs coming through. Narges, younger people are better than the aged. We would more talk aged. We don't We don't use that as a noun to refer to people. And bringing up the children, just in bringing up children, you don't need an article. So it's likely you have an issue with articles. The essential features of bringing up children are energy and patience, which is seen more in youth. Good. Moreover, older parents may not have updated knowledge that is needed for nurturing their children. Good. So you likely need an example as well. That probably wouldn't be long enough, but that's a good answer. Hi, Salvi. Good to see you here as well. Since older people are more dedicated to their jobs, oftentimes they neglect their responsibilities to their children. They are preoccupied with giving food and clothing in, I would say providing would be a better word here, providing food and clothing for their family, resulting in, that collocation goes together, resulting in less time, not lesser time, to spend with family. In the Philippines, for instance, most of the working couples leave their children under their parents' guidance and supervision. You've got a good level of English here. As like you're for most IELTS students, where they struggle is the English ability. So for you to master the IELTS skills, depending what score you need, of course, but you need to improve your English a little bit. But you're at a place where you can get a good score with not a massive amount of work. You will need to improve, but it's not going to be a massive amount of work for you. In the example, I would just say it's not clear what parents are, because the essay and the paragraph is referring to parents and their children. So when you talk about parents again, that's not very clear which parents. So you're talking about the parents of the parents. So in that case, we would actually just say the grandparents, and using an article in that case means the grandparents of the children. Or you could even clarify it with the full phrase. But no, you've done a good job here. Just be careful with things like less and lesser. Those don't have the same meaning. And I can't remember the other mistake that I pointed out, but there was another one in there as well. Hi, Osman. Owing to grow in percentages of getting married, some people are desperate that it has negative development for their families. No. So desperate isn't the same as worry. Desperate it's just a different meaning. You can look that up yourself. And then you say the development of their families, but the question isn't about the families of the people who are worrying. The question is about all families, or any family who has older parents, or where the parents got married at an older age, or just the families got married. It doesn't even necessarily mean that they had children, so just a married couple would be a family as well. But yeah, so when you said their families, that changes the meaning. Noni, when the parents are old, they are not fully capable of taking care of their offspring. To illustrate, looking after children requires, that's subject-verb agreement there, Noni, a lot of things such as energy, strength, and patience. So that's the noun, patience, which elderly people do not have. For example, in my country, the children with elder parents, we don't really use elder like that with elderly parents, but that would sound like more older again than the group we're referring to. So just with older parents would be better. With older parents are more likely to get sick easily compared with younger aged parents, because the elderly have many health issues stopping them from taking care of their children. Good job. Hi, Salvi. First, those who marry early can take care of children better than others. But say which others? The ones who get married when they're older. They are able to undergo with their children. Undergo doesn't have any meaning in this context, Dominic, because they have long time to do this. My niece, for example, she has been married since. So it would be she got married or she has been married since. When you're using present perfect, you have to use since she was 21 years old. And her family has, so her family has experience with their, I actually don't know that word. That's my fault, not yours. I'm just not sure what that word is. The most important is that they have time to share together. They also have time to solve and build up their life, to be in love. Okay. Some of that's a bit vague. It'd be better just to stay focused on the main idea. And then keep in mind your topic sentence needs to have the main idea as well. Oh, it does. My apologies. It does. Salvi, you're very welcome. Abdul Wahab. Firstly, older people are not as good at taking care of children due to the excessive care they render to their offsprings. That's quite complicated. The vocabulary here doesn't make that sentence very clear, Doctor. Many aged, again, aged, this is a phrase this is a word that's coming up a lot here, but it doesn't, we would just say older. We wouldn't use it like that. Many aged parents pamper their children because of fear of menopause, which means that they can give birth to any child. They can't give birth to any child again. Peradventure, anything bad happens to the present one, to the present child. These parents therefore show excessive care to their child and end up raising a weak child that struggles to cope in society. Okay, it's pretty deep, but yeah, that follows logically and that all makes sense. Good. Okay, so kind of seems like that's run its course. What I'd like you to do for the next paragraph is to just fill in your own with your own idea. So there's no need to follow my idea. You can just choose one of the ideas you had yourself and write the second body paragraph. Actually, no. My apologies. Let's go with this one because it'll be easier to keep us all on track. This is what I did last lesson on Tuesday and it was a bit of a disaster. So let's not do that again. Now, that's a difficult one. They're more selfish than their younger counterparts. So rather than just writing a full paragraph, just tell me how would you develop that idea? So you don't need to write a full paragraph. Just tell me how would you explain that or what example would you give? Very welcome, Dominic. No problem. Sandy, I was wondering where you were. Older people are not as good at taking care of children compared to their counterparts of younger parents. Many older parents refuse to learn how to take care of their children properly. Instead, the phrase is they tend to stick to. They tend to stick to their own traditional ways in which they were raised. Good. In Korea, for example, many older parents still punish their children physically or emotionally when raising their children because domestic abuse was a traditional way of parenting, and those parents, I would keep that in present simple, those parents firmly believe that, and then, it's the only way or whatever way you finished it, but that all makes sense. That's very well developed. Okay, so we're on to the second idea with Dr. Abdul Wahab. They are more selfish because they focus more on their career and leave their children to be catered for by nannies. Very good. Good. So they're more concerned with their careers because they've spent more time investing in their career. Yeah. So that's really strong. That's really well. That's really good, and it's a difficult idea to develop as well. Yeah. So that makes sense. They've spent more time investing in their careers, so they feel more dedicated to that. Good. So we'll just wait for one or two more ideas and then we'll move on to the next part of the lesson. But yeah, that's very good. Thanks, Doctor. I also have a question for you in that for those of you who were here at the very beginning of the lesson, when Dominic pointed out that we're comparing families of couples who get married when they're older with families of couples that get married when they're younger. Normally, that distinction, normally what I see in these lessons is that that connection isn't made when you're analyzing the question. And I'm just wondering, because all the main ideas are a lot of relevant ideas, a lot of specific ideas today. So did the fact that Dominic pointed that out at the start of the lesson, did that make it easier for you to generate ideas? Or do you think you would have made that connection by yourself? Salvi, well, probably because that type of language is fine for the speaking test, but your task 2 essay needs to be academic. So that type of language is not suitable. But let's just look at the idea. Well, probably because they're approaching their middle adulthood age, they tend to prioritize and secure their future until the end of their life. Good. Aside from that, they're thinking about investing into their pensions and benefits as they grow old. So they're too preoccupied with making sure they're okay when they hit retirement. Perfect. That's really good. Shashank, as they are financially fit, therefore, in order to earn more money, they overlook that their family is important. So you say financially fit. I don't know what that phrase means, but I would guess it means because they're in a good situation financially. So I don't see the connection between those two ideas. So if they're not having any money problems, why is there such a compulsion to earn more money? I would say surely if I have enough money, I'm not as concerned about earning more money. So maybe that's just me, but I don't see the connection there. This type of incident happened in India. Okay, so you'd with your example try to okay, and I know I asked you to just briefly outline what you would say, so that would be fine, but you would need to go into more detail as to the incident you're referring to. But yeah, it's definitely relevant. Noni, the younger age parents still have a dream to fulfill. So article there, a dream to fulfill. So they need to focus more on themselves than raising their children, probably because of their selfishness. So and I know this idea was difficult, but what you need to tell me is why are they more selfish? So you saw with the previous ideas, like for example, Dr. Abdul Wahab's, where they've been focusing on their careers for so long that they feel more invested in their careers than they do in their children, which is a new thing compared to their jobs, which they've been, or their careers, which they've been nurturing for longer. Yep, that's perfect, Selvi. Yeah, so I mean, in the context of this lesson, that language is completely fine. It's just older people can put their needs before others, even if these other people are their children. It has been proven in many studies that as we age, we prioritize ourselves more because of previous bad life experiences. Subconsciously, our minds tell us to think about ourselves first. Think about ourselves before others. Before others. My grandfather, for instance, refused to pay for my father's university fee. The phrase "my father's university fees," saying that he has finances saved for himself for his older age. Good. Very good. Okay. So, what I wanted to do at the end of the lesson, so if you're still writing, if you're still going to send your ideas on this, that's fine. But quite a few people are finished, and I would like to see a conclusion. I'd like to see one or two conclusions. So, based on this paragraph here, I would like you to write the conclusion. But having said that, anyone who is not finished the previous task, please continue. I will look at that as well. Chervin, they want to continue their career rather than take care of their children, so they just hired a nanny to take care of their kids. Good. Yeah, so their career is more important to them, whereas young people are not as invested in their careers when they have their children. Perfect. Dominic, furthermore, persons who acquire family late are more selfish than younger couples because of the enthusiasm. The young family has the enthusiasm to live with such, I'm not sure what that means, with such as share, with such qualities as wanting to share and support others, specifically their family. Yep, that does make sense. Just some vocab issues, some language issues there, Dominic. I actually initially I chose this reason because I thought it would be very difficult to develop. But you're all doing a really good job. I must say I'm quite impressed with your ability to develop this idea, which nobody developed. Nobody came up with that idea themselves. Nobody shared the idea about selfishness. I personally don't believe it's true. But you know, for the sake of the IELTS test, it doesn't matter whether you think it's true or not. You just want to be able to explain it in the context of the question, and you know, some really good responses here. Saeed, the people nowadays like to earn and do proper planning before getting married and having children somehow. I agree on that, as they seem more committed towards their goal and they can be good parents as well. So this is an introduction, as far as I can tell, Saeed. It's not all that clear because you haven't paraphrased every part of the question. And I'm not sure what their goal is. That's also unclear. So is their goal their career? Is their goal their family? Is it something else? So that's not completely. Hi, Shashank. Yeah, I personally thought this question would be quite difficult. I thought that you'd all struggle here today, but I think in general people are doing, the students attending are doing quite a good job. As I'm waiting for the conclusions to come through, let me just share some links with you. I have a link to subscribe. And my subscribers attend extra Zoom lessons with me every week. So I have 4 Zoom lessons a week. We have another Task 2 lesson tomorrow. So if you're already subscribed, I'll be seeing you there. And if not, do subscribe, and you get to work more closely with me. We work on Zoom. You get more feedback. Obviously, you can still come to these live streams, but they're a bit more intimate and it's easier to ask questions. Abdel Halim, good to see you here. How can I do paraphrase correctly? Paraphrase, honestly, paraphrase is really testing your language ability. How you can do it correctly is make sure it has the same meaning as the question, like more than anything, because so many students, so many IELTS candidates are fixated on not using any of the words in the question, and that's not the main focus. When you're paraphrasing, you want to use different words. Use as many different words as you can. But above all else, it should have the exact same meaning. If you've changed the meaning, added to the meaning, subtracted some aspect of the question, that's far worse than copying a few words from the question. It's not going to have a big effect on your score. In fact, it'll have no effect on your score if you use a few words. It's completely fine to do that. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking me about, but in general, that's the biggest mistake I see. Students will sit down, they'll look at it like a math problem, trying to substitute one word in and one word out. And very often the paraphrases are unclear because candidates are afraid to use one of the words in the question or any of the words in the question. So that's what I see most often. Vicious. Some people are concerned that marrying at older phase, we don't use phase. I see, Vicious, you're really trying to use less common vocabulary. I'm just, from the way you write, I can tell that you're working really hard on your vocabulary. I can tell that you're just, I'd imagine you're studying a lot of new vocab. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the impression that I'm getting. But you're trying to use vocab that you haven't fully understood yet. So again, phase, it's a similar in meaning, but it's not really a collocation that we would use. So continue reading, continue studying. It's absolutely fine to come and make mistakes in this lesson, but especially when you're in your IELTS test, you can't make those types of mistakes because that'll really deteriorate your score. It'll affect your score, and I can tell you're attempting to improve your vocab score by using less common words, but it doesn't work like that. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. So with the links that I shared with you, so that's lessons to subscribe for my live feedback lessons. Those are free. And there's also the link for the sample answer that I wrote for this question. So I've shared both of those with you already. Noni, in conclusion, it is believed that recently the percentage of individuals who get married are more. So you put more in the wrong place. So it's the percentages more, not the individuals are more. When they are older, and it might have a negative impact on their families. I fully agree, because the old generation, because older parents, so just keep it simple, because older parents are not well qualified to look after their offspring, and they tend to be more selfish compared to younger age parents. Sorry, I had my cursor blocking the word. Okay, so what Noni has in this conclusion is basically everything you need in a conclusion. So someone should be able to come along and read the conclusion and understand everything that was written in the essay. So we have the 2 main ideas in here, and it's obvious what the essay was about. Yep. And like I said earlier, Noni has her IELTS test tomorrow. So everyone, please wish her the best of luck. Best of luck for me, Noni. Hopefully everything goes according to plan. Shashank, we want you daily. Thank you, sir. Yep. So yeah, you have me daily. I'm doing 2 lessons, doing 2 live lessons a week. I'm going to start doing another one on a Wednesday, but that's different. That's I'm selecting the winner of the essay correction, and then I have those free live feedback lessons on Zoom. Those are 4 days a week. So yeah, I'm more than available. Get involved. There's plenty more help available. It's all free. So yeah, sign up and I'll see you in the lessons, Shashank and everyone else. Sandy, so this is the previous paragraph. They're more selfish than their younger counterparts, as many young individuals these days are becoming more interested in their mental well-being. Many younger parents are emotionally mature. Older parents tend to overlook emotional support for their children, showing selfishness due to their emotional immaturity. To illustrate, many Korean, so just the word order, you would need to say older Korean parents do not respect their children as much as younger parents do. And you don't need so at the end of that. Good. But continue studying, Vicious. I mean, you're obviously working hard, and that's good. And I think the impression I'm getting is you're not investigating the words in enough detail. So it's you kind of have a vague understanding of the words, but you'll see in my vocabulary improvement strategy that it does require a lot more investigation, get more examples, and see how it's used exactly. Okay, so I think that's the same paragraph again, Sandy. Salvi, in conclusion, I completely agree that mature people would not be as good as the younger ones when taking care of their children. That is because they prioritize more on their needs as they're preparing for their late adulthood lives. Also, they tend to focus more on spending time and doing what they still want to do before it's too late for them. So these main ideas are not the same ones as we had in the introduction, but this is essentially, a perfect conclusion as well. One thing I would say in comparison to Noni's one, where Noni did reiterate the full, so essentially Noni wrote it like an introduction by paraphrasing the question and then an outline statement, but you don't need to paraphrase the question in the same way, Noni. And what Salvi did is just go straight into what your opinion is. In conclusion, I completely agree that, and then you restate what the essay was about by explaining what your opinion is. So this is not that Noni's was wrong, but this is more the way I would recommend to do it. Shashank, will I come tomorrow? Yep. So I have a live lesson on Zoom tomorrow. So I'll be doing that with my subscribers. Yep. Vicious, thank you. Oh, sorry, I looked at that already. Break a leg, Noni. Indeed. Best of luck, Noni. In conclusion, people will get married when they're older in the modern age. No need for that. So it's not that you're using the wrong tense here as well, Dominic. So it's not people will get, it's that people are getting older. People are getting married when they're older. And then in the modern age isn't really a paraphrase of nowadays. The modern age is, it's not really an academic phrase. Again, people, not persons. Yeah. So besides language mistakes, that's a good conclusion. Victoria, you're welcome. All the best, Noni. Well, I certainly hope you'll get the score. That's for sure, Noni. I think you've done all the work. I mean, I think you've done everything you need to do. I'm confident that you will get the score. Just just communicate as clearly as you can. Don't take any chances. Don't take any risks with vocab and grammar, and you know how to write an essay. So no, I'm confident, and best of luck with it. Okay, so that's essentially the lesson completed. A bit more disjointed today than I would have liked. I don't think that was my best lesson. But besides the question that we just looked at, does anybody have any questions that they want to ask me before we finish up here? Does anyone have any concerns, or are there things that you're studying at the moment in relation to IELTS that you don't get, or you're confused about, or you have any questions about? Is this tough questions come in the exam? Yeah, you definitely get a question like that in the exam. Absolutely. Yeah. But again, it's once you get comfortable with the way that the IELTS test works, the questions don't seem more or less difficult. Once you know how to respond, and again, the lessons I shared at the start of this video explain, how to analyze the question, how to generate ideas, how to develop your ideas, how to structure your essays and everything. So it's very much you're just following a path. And when you get used to it, the questions don't seem more or less difficult. I think in general, what will make a question more difficult, once you know how to write them, what would make it difficult is if there's a word that you're not familiar with, or if you don't understand the question, like a language issue. But besides that, you get a lot more comfortable with them once you understand what's required from you. Yeah, absolutely, Salvi. Fire away. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Seems like nobody has questions. The lesson's essentially finished. I have a question. So we're essentially done here. If you don't have any questions, we'll just finish it up. Jervin, can we have a reading test here? I cannot provide you with reading tests. Other sites share Cambridge tests. That it's copyright material. They own those tests. They publish them. They produce them. I wouldn't share materials that aren't mine to share. So I wouldn't. I'd recommend go and buy a Cambridge IELTS book. In fact, I'd recommend buy 2 of them. But no, I can't do that, Jervin. Get maximum of 5. Have you completed my lessons, Salvi? I'm surprised your language ability seems like normally people's reading ability is higher than their writing ability. So I'd be surprised if you're stuck at 6.5. It's probably the exam skills rather than your language ability. Have you completed my reading lesson yet? And let me share it with you here. You'll get plenty more feedback from me, and you're very welcome, Dominic. No problem. Yeah, no problem, Jervin. Yeah, I see. The thing as well is, like, I have in my previous job, I produced reading and listening tests for practice, but you can't get accurate scores. You can't get accurate difficulty. You can't have it accurate in how long it takes to complete. It takes IELTS. Like I worked with someone who used to write task 1 questions for Cambridge, and they said from start to finish, from first starting a reading test to having it completed and ready to use in the IELTS test takes somewhere about 1.5 to 2 years, because it takes that long to calibrate it. So yeah, it's a really big job to do them properly. That's why I always recommend, like, you'll get free practice tests online, and if they've written the questions in the correct format, that is, a kind of practice. It is suitable practice, as long as the person who wrote them knows exactly what they're doing. But in relation to having the appropriate level of difficulty, how long it takes, getting the accurate scores, and that, you need the real books for that. If you know how to use them, that's you're very close to it. And I would say, even for the IELTS writing test, you don't need to be able to produce it perfectly, but I'm sure you've completed my lessons by now. You've been following me for a while. That 5 minutes at the end where you're going to proofread your answer, that your focus should be on articles. And if you already know that articles are a mistake, and you already know how to fix them, you could pretty much remove 90% of the mistakes from your answer in that sense. Good. Perfect, Sandy. Good job. Shashank, yep, I have materials for speaking. I have the live lessons that I said, the ones, like, if you subscribe for them, I do speaking lessons on Tuesdays with my subscribers. But I've been playing around with the idea of doing a live stream, but the way it would work, the only way it would work, and I don't know, I could definitely try one and see if it works, but it would have to be send out a link for people to join me on the software that I'm using now, and it only allows a certain number of people on. And then I don't really know what the people who aren't on, like, how I could get them engaged in the lesson. I could definitely try one as a live stream, but like I said, just subscribe with the link that I shared earlier on, and I'm doing speaking feedback every week with my subscribers as well. Vicious, you're very welcome. If you're aiming for 6.5, you're not that far away from 6.5 as it is, Dominic. So, like, the language mistakes that you're making, you can make quite a lot of mistakes. It's the less common words that you're using that are sometimes confusing, but that would bring down, that would be your biggest concern, is like those words where I think, this is my impression, and I'm just looking at what you've written, but my impression is that you're trying to use less common words because you're trying to get a higher score, but those are the ones that are confusing, and that will bring your score down. But you're not that far from a 6.5 as it is, Dominic. So that seems to be everything. Salvi, I was kind of expecting to hear back from you. You can just, I'll just comment when you're ready, and I'll see your comment later, and I'll reply to you as well. But yeah, let's finish up there for today. If you've already subscribed, I'll see you in the lesson tomorrow, and if not, I'm back with live stream on Tuesday. So have a good weekend if I don't see you before then. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye, everyone.